Today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's brought up concerning a lot, well, not a lot, but a few verses from the Old Testament and a few verses of the New Testament. What I'm talking about is mostly about revenge. That's what most people label under. It's concerning about the verses of Jesus telling us to turn the other cheek in the New Testament, and the Old Testament where we read, a tooth for a tooth, an eye for an eye. One of the first times we hear a tooth for a tooth or an eye for an eye is in Exodus 21, verse 24. It's eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. And this is a chapter about the many different personal injuries and the crimes for them, for those, the punishments for the crimes of those. Just the verse before it says, but if there was a serious injury, you're to take life for life. That is verse 23. We also see in Leviticus chapter 24, in verses 19 and 20 as well. Anyone who injures their neighbors be injured in the same manner. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The one who has inflicted the injury must suffer the same injury. And just like with the Exodus, a few verses earlier, we also see, again, more to it. Same chapter, sorry. Verse 17, anyone who takes the life of a human being is to be put to death. Anyone who takes the life of someone's animal must make restitution. Life for life. Then it goes to verse 19. We even see it a third time in Deuteronomy chapter 19. We read in verse 21, show no pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. All these Old Testament verses have it within the first 5 books of the Bible. Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. Surprisingly, it's not in Numbers, probably because it's mostly a bunch of lineage and numbers, not many rules. Which is what most of these chapters were about. They're about setting up the rules for the ancient Israelite people, the Old Covenant. Every single one of these are telling the ancient Israelite people how they have justice in their society. How are they going to judge when there's crime? How do they punish the crime? And that's exactly what these verses are about. Given the context and every other verse around them, it shows that they're talking about crimes and the punishment must be fitting toward the crime. The biggest example of that is when it talks about taking of life. If you're to take of a man's life, a human life, you must pay it with your own life. If you haven't taken a life, you must pay in the same and equal form. The punishment must fit the crime. It cannot be way too extreme, like killing someone just for jaywalking. But it also can't be too little where it devalues people. It must be the same level of value. That's what all these verses are showing. When you take a life, you give up a life because of that, because of the value of it. If you hurt someone's tooth, you lose a tooth because of the value of it. Both have the same value. It also shows that the value must be respected. And there is different values between different things, like life and just a body part. Now we get to the complicated part, in which in the New Testament, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 38, we read Jesus telling us, you have heard it was said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. Now wait a minute, didn't we just read 3 different times in the Old Testament where it's supposed to be equal punishment, where it's supposed to be the same thing? Why are we just accepting it now? Does Jesus mean when someone does wrong to you, just forgive it and ignore it? No, definitely not. And so he's talking about something entirely different. And we can see that when we keep reading the chapter. After he says, turn from the other cheek, he says, and if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Now, wait a minute. That sounds even more like just giving in to evil. That sounds even more like just ignoring evil being done to you. But I promise you, it's not. What Jesus is talking about in chapter 38 of Matthew is not a crime, is not a punishment that the justice system must take over. Much rather, it is about personal, we'll say, complications. When people are trying to get a rise out of you, when people are trying to be mean to you, bully you, trying to get some sort of like kick out of being mean to you, what Jesus is saying is you do not repay that evil with evil. Doing the same thing back toward them won't fix anything. Essentially, two wrongs do not make a right. This is not about punishment for a crime. It's about how you deal with people who are trying to do wrong to you. What Jesus is describing is not murder. It's not horrible assault. It's not stealing. These are not crimes. This is someone trying to get a rise out of you, trying to piss you off, trying to annoy you. It's much different than the actual justice system and crimes being talked about in the Old Testament. What Jesus is talking about is simple revenge, about people who are trying to get a kick out of you, and about how two wrongs do not make a right. Funny enough, it's actually not in the Bible, but in many ways it's true. The entire chapter of Matthew 38, Jesus talks a lot about how you should treat people, especially people who do you wrong. The next few verses after the ones I read talk about how you love your enemies. You love your friends and love your enemies as well. You do not repay evil with evil. You judge it in a righteous way. But when people try to joke around, trying to get a kick out of you, you don't punish them. You still be good. You still do and love them. You don't turn down to their level and just give it back to them. We can't play a game of revenge like that. We are not in control of it. And especially when it's other people, you have no idea how far they would go. Instead, actually, God tells us to leave revenge up to Him. We are not to ignore evil. Instead, we are to treat it with good, with love, with peace, and with righteousness. Don't worry about eternal judgment for other people regarding their sins, because God will handle it. God tells us to leave revenge up to Him, and honestly, I think that's much better because, hey, He can do a lot more than we can. Instead, we should follow what Jesus tells us to do and turn their cheek. When people try to get a rise out of us, instead of going down to their level, we need to show them love and kindness. It doesn't mean that we ignore it. It doesn't mean that we just take anything. We still have to defend ourselves. We still have to protect the people we care about, protect our possessions. But don't let people get to you. And especially, don't let them turn you away from God or acting how God wants us to. I hope I've cleared up some confusion between these many different verses. The Old Testament talks about a justice system built into society and for how everyone should act with a whole society of justice, with punishments fitting the crime. And the New Testament, Jesus talking about how we treat people who might not treat us in the greatest fashion. We should treat people with love and with kindness, even when they don't repay us the same. Because it's not the reason we treat people with love. We don't treat people with love and kindness hoping that they give us the same, because almost all the time, they will never give us the same. And it's not why we do it. If we do it expecting rewards, we'll never do it again. We do it because that's what we're told to do, because it's the right thing that God has commanded us to. We will get our reward in relationship with God, not in whatever other people will give you, not in the kindness of other people, but with God we get our reward. Thank you all for watching, and God bless.